Okay, so some people have been talking on the forum about hard blows, whether they're to use them or not. Uh, People say that you need the hard blows to make sure the string is set or rendered. There's different vocabulary. Other people say, well, hard blows are damaging and they hurt your hearing and they damage the piano, and even customers complain. So, how can we do this? Is it necessary to use the hard blows? Well, hard blows will always confirm that a string is stable because it's the hard blows that cause it to go out. But I'll just show you what I'm doing and maybe it'll help. I don't know. So I'm using two strings at once. I'm tuning two strings at once for different reasons. It makes it easier for me. So we can show with the tuning the two strings at once, we can hear when it goes out. Eh? So let's just use a very common go sharp E's flat technique. That's sharp, and now go flat. And that sounds like a clean unison. But if we do some test blows, it's clearly not stable. So I wouldn't use a go sharp E's flat on this. I'm just going to use a slow pull. A slow pull technique is very fast and stable. I know it's stable. Why don't we measure it to make sure it's really stable? So I'm listening to the center and the right string. I've muted the left. So let's just measure the right string here. Minus 13.5. Minus 13.5. That's before hard blows. So let's give this thing a really good whack and see if we can get it to go down. It didn't go down. It may even gone up a little bit. What's going on? How was I able to do this? Well, the reason why it works is because the model I've developed says that the non-speaking length, the string between the tuning pin and the A graph, has a tension that changes when we move the tuning hammer. And the speaking length tension um, moves with the non-speaking length tension only when the friction across the A graph is big enough. And then the friction breaks and the string slips. So as I make it go up, only when the non-speaking length tension exceeds the limit, and this is the limit, the upper and lower limit, then the string will slip. So as I go up, nothing happens until I break the friction. And then if I wanted to loosen the string, nothing would happen until I broke the friction. We need to leave the non-speaking length tension tight. And that, from what I've discovered, that's what produces a stable tuning. For concert tunings have to be extremely stable and not move at all. And what I found is that if we leave that non-speaking length tension as tight as possible, it will be stable. And the reason for that is when we play the string really hard, the tension on the string goes up. And we can see that because the string is moving, so it's obviously a longer string, so the tension is higher. The ends are fixed. If we have a stable string, the ends are fixed, so a longer string has a higher tension. So that means that this thing goes up. It goes up on a hard blow, and also the termination point is the string is moving on the termination point. And a standard engineering term that describes this is a coefficient of friction. And moving parts have a lower coefficient of friction. They have lower friction. So not only does the speaking length tension rise, but the amount of friction at the A graph gets smaller. So this is what happens. That's why you need it at the top. Some people say, well, I hit it really hard and that equalizes the tensions. No, no, it doesn't equalize the tensions, because when you're hitting it really hard, the string is moving and the tension is higher. So the tension you're equalizing, I should back up and say, yes, it does equalize the tensions, but the tensions that are equalized are the high speaking length tensions that are created when that string is violently vibrating. That's a high tension. So during a hard blow, the speaking length tension's rising, and then it will equalize with the non-speaking length tension. But then um, after you stop hitting it hard, the speaking length tension drops back down as the string becomes still and not vibrating anymore. So because of the friction, the non-speaking length tension stays high. So this is why it's stable, because when you play it hard, you're only decreasing the difference between the speaking length and the non-speaking length, and that makes it even more stable. So it's not an equalized tension across the V-bar. This might be new for some people, and some people just might refuse to believe that, and that's fine. I'm only sharing with you what I think and what seems to work for me, and why I was not only very quickly able to tune the string, the unison, but I was also able to get it stable very quickly. So what's happening? What's happening when I do that is I'm pulling the string up and then I'm leaving it. So what happens when I leave it is that I've turned the string clockwise. And because the hammer's at 12 o'clock, the side-to-side bending doesn't affect the non-speaking length tension. But when I'm finished tuning, the pin will untwist counterclockwise, and that will drop the tension. But because it's a long non-speaking length, then the tension won't drop very much. That's Hooke's law. It has to do with how the tensions change for an equal change in the length. I had a study I did, or an experiment I did with my daughter, and she had a 2-foot bungee cord and a 20-foot bungee cord. She tied the 2-foot bungee cord to me and moved, and I was going like this. Then she tied a 20-foot bungee cord to me and moved the same amount, and I didn't feel anything. So that's what's happening. We got a 20-foot bungee cord here, and I'm moving the hammer around, letting the pin untwist by itself, and the tension is very, very little. The change is very little. So that's what happens. I pull it sharp and then leave it. Now, also what can happen over time, because I have not set the pin, I haven't set the pin here. To set the pin would mean to turn it counterclockwise and towards the string, simulating the force that the string has on the pin right now, with the idea that we don't want the pin to move anymore. Well, in this case, because it's such a long non-speaking length, the pin can move. The pin can continue to settle and the tension will drop, but not a lot, because it's a long non-speaking length. And also, the pin's not very tight on this piano, so that means it wasn't twisted a lot when I was tuning, so it won't untwist a lot. So let's just do a little bend. I'm bending it counterclockwise, pressing down to sort of simulate some settling over time. And it's still pretty stable, you know. We could even, if we wanted to be really, really picky about this, we can start measuring it. Like I moved that, I don't know if you noticed that, but I really moved the pin a lot before I even heard anything. let's try and do that again. Maybe you can see. Watch me move the pin. You just see me move it? And it's still stable. But let's measure, okay? Let's measure. Clean unison. And let's measure the frequency. 12.7. And now I'm even moving the pin foot a little bit. 13.6. So that's still less than 1 cent, which the PTG says is 100% for stability. And that's what it sounds like. Pretty stable still. So the model I'm using is this model here. I'm thinking about the non-speaking length tension and the tension band and the friction that has to be broken. So the bend test is very simple. What you do, let's say we're going to do a go sharp, ease flat. That's sharp. Ease it flat. Sounds clean. But the bend test says it's not stable. So what happened here? Well, I went sharp, and then I eased it flat at 12 o'clock. When I finished, the only untwisting was the only change in the pin after I reached my target pitch was the untwisting. Now, because I was going counterclockwise to set the pitch, it was a clockwise untwist. Not very much because the pins are not too tight, and also because it's a long non-speaking length, the tension didn't change very much. But where was the tension? After I went sharp and eased it flat, at the bottom. And on a hard blow, that would be very bad. So the tension did go up because the pin did untwist clockwise, but not very much. And so what happened when I bent the pin, or people don't like the word bend, but it's an engineering term. It means bend. A bending force means a force just trying to bend the pin. Doesn't mean it's bent. So we might as well use the engineering term because we're technicians. Why not use the language that other technicians use, you know? So the bending force on the pin will cause the non-speaking length tension to drop and go outside this limit, and therefore the friction is too big to keep the string from slipping, and it slips just on this massage or this bend. So that without having to hit it hard, I've shown that it's not stable. Now a hard blow would cause the tension band to rise and narrow, and again would cause it to slip. So both will cause it to slip. You just need to learn how much to bend to give yourself a good feedback of what's happening. So with the slow pull, we tune the unison and then press on the hammer, and it doesn't change. And that's because on the slow pull, I pulled it up, and then the pin did untwist counterclockwise. So that would cause the non-speaking length tension to drop a tiny bit, but not a lot because it's a long non-speaking length and because it wasn't twisted a lot to begin with because these pins aren't tight. So then I applied a bending force to the pin, and that caused the non-speaking length tension to drop. But because it's so high already, it didn't go outside this limit of tensions where the difference would be so great that it would cause the string to slip, but the string didn't slip and it was stable. So there's a couple of demonstrations to help you try to attain stable tunings without using hard, damaging test blows, if that's what you want to do. I hope you enjoyed that.